Hi, welcome to my podcast, Becoming a Cut Flower Grower. I'm your host, Lydia, and I'm here to share my year of growing and selling cut flowers. I'll be giving you the lowdown on everything I'm doing and sharing all the highs and lows, the good times and the inevitable disasters, all in real time. Join me on my cut flower journey, starting right now. Hello and welcome to the latest episode. It is Tuesday. Oh gosh, no, it's not. It's Friday. Hang on. Should I start this again? No, I won't. I'll carry on. It's Friday, the 9th of January, 2026. And since I last spoke to you on what was correctly Tuesday, we have had ice, lots of rain, and one extremely misty day, which was just really dark and miserable and horrible. And we also had a day when I hadn't realised the nighttime temperatures were as cold as they were. And I went to the plot and I was tramping around and I was thinking, gosh, this is all really feeling very slippery and quite dangerous. And it turns out the temperature had plummeted overnight. And then we'd had this sort of light dusting of like really super light snow. And it was concealing the fact that underneath this incredibly dusty layer was just sheets of ice. So that was a bit tricky, but I haven't fallen over yet. Touch wood, actually, touch wood. So you won't be surprised to hear that I haven't done anything on the plot. I've literally been at home trying to stay warm. It's been quite a shock to the system moving back home after this incredible house I was house sitting, which was just toasty warm the whole time. I guess that's the beauty of underfloor heating, is the heat just permeates up and you don't have to do anything. And so my floor is absolutely freezing. So I'm trying to keep my feet off the ground. And all of this week, I have been finishing off the website and it is now live, which is really exciting. So I've asked a couple of people to have a look at it and test it out and point out if I've made any terrible mistakes, because once you've been looking at something for ages, you just don't see any mistakes at all. And I'm very, very pleased about that. I'm going to talk a bit more about that in a second, but I have come up with a new technique for productivity, which I really want to share with you. It's got a terrible name, so I don't think anybody's going to take this idea and run with it because it's awful. But I am calling it Prod Hour. And what I've decided to do, because I've been telling you I've had all these lists and I've got all these lists and they just get a bit out of hand sometimes, then I just think, oh, there's so many things on there, I can't even face it, I'll do it tomorrow. So what I thought was I will work for 1 hour and I set a timer on the phone, not the smartwatch, because we're still not on speaking terms, me and the smartwatch. So I set a timer on my phone for 1 hour and then I keep it face up on the table so I can actually see the time ticking down. And that gives me such a boost to actually get on and do some work, because I'm somebody that needs a deadline. So if you asked me to do something 6 months hence from today, I would do it the day before. And it would still have the same passion and enthusiasm. I just would not be able to start it until the day before the deadline. And I have always been like that my entire life. And I don't really see that changing, to be honest, but I thought there's got to be a workaround to this. So what if I set myself a false deadline? And there's nothing like a timer on a phone ticking down to make me feel like I need to rush. So I've been doing these prod hours and just absolutely firing out the work. And then when the alarm goes, you literally stop what you're doing, save your work, and then go away from the table, like go up and do anything else, even just go to the bathroom. But the point is to just literally step away the second that alarm goes off. And boy, have I got so much work done this week. I'm wildly excited with it. So I hope you've had a good week and everything is good where you are. I would like to share some information about my website with you. Not that I'm plugging it or anything, because I think we're all fellow growers, so it's not going to be a sales thing for me to tell you about it. But I've wanted to do one for absolutely ages. I wanted to do one all of 2025, and I thought I can't really justify the monthly expense of having a website running when I'm really not off the ground yet. I'm such a newbie. But I thought it was something that I wanted to have this year. And I then decided I would do it in the winter. And then, of course, started to do my 6-figure flower farming course with Jenny Marks and realized that I actually need to hold off from making it, because what I was learning on the course was going to be the correct way of doing things and the complete opposite from the kind of website that I would have written normally. And I did learn an awful lot on that course, and I have tried to incorporate as much of it as I could without being too zealous about it. So it was always the plan that it would have a very simple structure and a layout. It didn't need to be anything complicated, and it's going to be something that I would have always been building myself. There's no budget to outsource any of this. And I've used Wix to do mine, and I've built websites with them before, and I find them really, really easy to use. So many templates, so many images that are already on there, and just I find them very easy to use. And the color scheme and everything has flown out from the logo, which I did, I don't know, halfway through last year. And that is, like, if you haven't seen it, it's kind of a bright pink. It's two H's for the name of the business, which is Hen Hill Cut Flowers, and they're kind of they're touching these two H's, and then there's an outline of a chicken perched on top of one of the H's. And I loved the color when I did it, so I've ended up just using that color through the website, which is supposed to make it look all very coherent. And as I say, the text is heavily influenced by the course. And one of the things we talked about on the course, and I don't think this is actually a course secret, because Jenny talked about this in one of her last podcast episodes, is choosing like your big focus for the year, what you really want to put all your attention on, which is not to say that you can't have lots of different things going on, although don't have too many, but there has to be a big focus that you really put all of your energy on. And for me in 2026, the big focus is going to remain on selling wholesale to wedding and event florists. I have talked with you about selling flowers, in a market, and perhaps even doing like DIY buckets, or doing some very simple arrangements for other people. And I'm still going to do those, but the big focus has to be on doing the wholesale to wedding and event florists. That is what I've set my flag on, and that's what I'm going to go with. And on that basis, the website therefore needs to be focused entirely on this big focus, and all of the text and all of the copy had to speak directly to my ideal customer, who's somebody that I mapped out when I was doing this course. And if or when I sell in any other channels, like at the markets, I can amend the website accordingly. But I didn't want to start off with something that listed all of these different things I did. I felt like it would just water down the brand and the ethos of what I'm doing at the moment. And I also, as part of this sort of package deal, got a designated business email address too, which I'm very excited about. I just have to remember to use it. I have all got it set up on the phone now. There was a big kerfuffle over that, and my IT skills are not what they used to be, as you can probably tell if you listen regularly. And eventually it all just got way too much, so I just shut the laptop down, came back to it the next day, braced for the challenge, and the email was just all up and running and everything was functioning perfectly. So I'm glad I stepped away from it and didn't try and plow through all these complicated instructions, because it appears that I didn't need to do any of that. So the whole point of the website is to attract the right customer to me, which is wedding and event florists in my area, and to speak to them in a way that makes them more likely to buy from me, because there are lots of fantastic growers within a half an hour drive of me, and we're all essentially doing the same product. So I feel like it's going to come down to personality, so hopefully I won't upset anybody, and also to the branding and how easy it is to order from me and take collection or delivery of the product. So that's what I've tried to convey in the website. And I also want it to give some credibility to what I do, so I can share the website with people and they can have a look and say, oh yes, this woman is doing exactly what she's standing here telling me that she does. I wanted to highlight the benefits of buying from me and explain how the whole process works in really simple terms, and give my contact details, and also explain a little bit when I've given the contact details on the contact page, is to actually say, look, you can contact me via phone or email or Instagram. And I've made it very clear on the website that I'm happy to accept DMs from people on Instagram. I know I've heard from other podcasts where people are horrified when members of the public contact them on their DMs on Instagram. And it seems to be like some people are completely comfortable with it, and some people think it's really unprofessional and that you should send an email. Well, I hate emails, so I'm hoping that nobody actually ever sends me an email, because I just I just hate them for some reason. I'm very happy to make an arrangement with a DM on Instagram. So I wanted to make that very clear in case anybody looks at it and goes, oh no, I better not send a DM because somebody else doesn't like it. And I've also written a bit about, leave a message or send me a text or a WhatsApp if I don't answer the phone, because lots of people just put mobile phones on their websites, and that's great. But a lot of the time, I don't answer my phone. In fact, I hardly ever answer it. I have it on silent because I just don't like being interrupted. And I always had this idea that the phone was there for my convenience, which is a very selfish perspective to have. I blame that on being an only child. But the point is, I wanted to make it clear that if somebody rings, I don't want them to just think, oh, well, I'll give up on her. So I've said, leave me a message and I'll get back to you. So I've written it in a way that I hope it sounds like it's me talking through the website. It says what I would say to a florist if I met them, and hopefully I've captured the voice and it goes down well when people look at it, which is another issue. I need to do some SEO and a bit of marketing on that so that people do actually get to have a look at it. And I also still need to add some testimonials to it as well. So, part 2 of tonight's episode, and I must keep remembering that it's Friday, not Tuesday. It's so confusing. I've made so many mistakes this year with the days and the dates. I'm wondering whether I should just stop saying the day and the date, and then I won't get it wrong, because I'm actually looking at the date on my laptop and still managed to get it wrong. Part 2 of this episode is a new series that I am starting to do, and I think I'm going to do this every Friday, which is a plant profile of the plants that I am growing this year, probably that I grew last year, but there may be some that I haven't that are new. So I just thought it would be quite interesting to chat about one particular flower in the episode and just go through with you what I've done with it and why it makes a great cut flower. So I hope it's useful. So the first one in the series is Didiscus, and this is a really, really pretty blue or white. I think actually there's also a pinky one that you can get, and it's in the umbella. It's a type of umbellifer flower, so it's got these sort of a flat topped look to it. It's also known as lace flower. And when I was having a conversation with my wedding and event florist all the way back in 2024, which seems like forever ago, the trend then for her in 2025, or one of the trends, was having a sort of a touch of blue in things. And I remember thinking straight off the bat, oh, that's going to be challenging because there aren't that many blue flowers. It's not the most overwhelming colour that you get. So I did a bit of research, and I must have come up with Didiscus. I can't actually remember the process, but if you listen to this podcast often enough, you'll know that there's a lot I can't remember, and most of 2024 was a bit of a blur. When I did my audit in October this year on the most profitable flowers that I'd grown, Didiscus actually came in at number 11 on my spreadsheet. So it just dropped out of the top 10. And it was number 11 for gross margins, gross profit margins. So the cost of the seed plus the labor costs it took me to actually produce it versus what I had then actually managed to sell it for. So I really loved it. I was very surprised. I'd never grown it before. It was a total punt really to see what I could do with it. So I did my first sowing on the 11th of March. Those guys went out on the 11th of May. Second sowing 1st of April, planted out 29th of May, and a final sowing on the 20th of April, planted out 18th of June. So I had in the end a total of 57 plants, and I didn't record how many seeds I'd actually sown. I probably could find that out somewhere, but overall the germination rates were really very good, and I got the spacings correct by the time I got them out. And I did put them quite close together. I think at this point I'd been through the cornflower debacle where they weren't close enough together, so I was feeling a bit ruthless at this point, and the spacings were fine. So they have this sort of like a rosette, if you like, of basal flowers at the bottom, and then these lovely little stems come up with these beautiful blue flowers on, and then you get more buds coming up. In fact, you get multiple buds on one stem. and they flowered non-stop till October. I was so chuffed with them. I almost didn't want to take them out of the ground in the end because they were just lovely. And I started selling them in July. Now, the stem length I was getting was between 30 and 40 centimeters. And I think what I would do this year is just cut them lower down. I really didn't have much of a clue what I was doing with these guys and exactly where to cut them. But knowing that they will just keep regrowing, I will just cut them lower down so I can get a longer stem length, which doesn't always matter because I think some of them went off in little bud vases anyway, so it was kind of academic, but it's nice to have the choice, right? So it's a hardy annual plant, grows absolutely fine in cool conditions. It can be direct sown, but I'm reluctant to do that. I'm going to do mine in the greenhouse this year in probably in trays or tubs. I've got thousands of those now because I mentioned to my family that I was collecting trays, so that, you know, these plastic ones, so you don't have to throw them away, and I'll just reuse them. And now I've got sacks of them, and they're actually native to Australia. So they are, you can find them in these kind of dry, sandy soils in shrublands and grassland areas, which gives you an indication of how they would want to be grown in the UK or wherever you're growing them. But basically, they're not going to appreciate a really heavy, waterlogged clay soil. They really, really need to have very, very good drainage. And I fell in love with them this year. I really, really did. They've got this very, very delicate, very fine texture. The blue was absolutely stunning, and I'm going to get some white ones. In fact, I've just seen some organic white ones online that I think I'm going to try and get. And they had these lovely sturdy stems as well, which was almost a bit deceptive because you'd look at the flower head and think, oh, that's going to be on something very, very thin that's just going to fall over. And it wasn't the case at all. They were lovely stems, and a good vase life. I cut some of them for myself and tested them out, and just the perfect filler, really. I mean, just absolutely perfect. I couldn't fault them at all. They were absolute little troopers. So as I say, I'm going to sow mine in trays or cells this year, and sow them obviously before the last frost date. Now, I lightly covered mine and got excellent germination, but there is a thing online about they need darkness to germinate, and then other people say they need light to germinate. So I think the answer is to go somewhere in between, and don't cover them in a thick layer of soil, or just put vermiculite over the top so that they will find their own balance there somewhere. Now, apparently, they have a light, sweet fragrance, but I was rushing around like a headless chicken last year. I don't remember smelling them at all. And to be honest, my nose is a bit funny if you hear me sniffing a lot. I have a bit of a problem with my nose, and some days I can smell things, and other days I can't smell anything. Succession sowing is definitely a winner with this one. I did mine, well, what would it look like? Every few weeks? Yeah, about every 3 weeks I did mine. And I don't know that I would have carried on after April. I probably could have done, but given that the original plants I had were still flowering in October, they were pretty good actually. And harvesting them, well, I mean, you're supposed to harvest them when half the florets are open, and then some of the buds apparently open post harvest. But I just opened mine when they were ready, because I sold them predominantly to my wedding and event florist, and I know that she needs them to be ready. So if I hand them over to her on a Thursday and she's going to do all the installations on Friday for a wedding on Saturday, she's not going to want half the heads to be not open. So they need to be ready to go for that type of client. And because they're all sort of pretty and lacy, and they've kind of got this sort of cottagey style, so they look nice with all the other sort of classic cottagey things, and they look particularly nice with grasses, which would make sense because of course this is where you would find them in their native Australia doing their thing. And plus anything that needs a little bit of this lovely soft blue. So that will be what I am repeating this process this year, and getting hold of some of the white ones as well, because they're not quite as classy looking as Orlia, which is a really popular cut flower, but they're kind of, well, are they a bit like, no, they're not like scabious at all, but they're in a world of their own. But they've got that very, very pretty, delicate look about them. So I think the white ones would actually be very useful to have. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about this evening. Now we've got a weekend ahead of us until hopefully you will rejoin me on Tuesday for the next episode. I am still on a hunt for the cream eggs. They have not turned up, which I think is really suspicious, and I'm getting a bit worried about where they possibly could even be now. So that will be me this weekend hunting for 3 cream eggs. And I hope you will come back and join me next week. You're always very welcome. And if you have any questions or comments, I would always love to hear from you. And you can send me a DM on Instagram because I'm very happy to receive those. So that's it from me. All the very best.